Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome back to Love English, the podcast where I help you fall in love with the English language. I'm your host Manoj, and today I've got a special episode for you. We're going to explore the fantastic world of learning English through podcasts. So, why learn English through podcasts? You ask. Well, there are countless reasons, but let me share a few that have made podcasts my favorite language learning tool, and that's why I have turned into to podcasting now. First and foremost, podcasts are incredibly convenient. You can listen to them anytime, anywhere, whether you are commuting, working out, or just chilling at home. All you need is your smartphone and you are ready to embark on your English learning journey. And the second is podcasts also offer a unique form of immersion. Now, by tuning in regularly, you surround yourself with authentic English conversations, accents, and expressions. It's like having English speakers as your companion, guiding you through the language. Now, let's talk about the variety. The variety of English language podcasts is staggering. There's something for everyone, from English learners to native speakers. You can find shows on travel, history, cooking, science, and of course, language learning. This diversity keeps your learning engaging and fresh. Number four is repeated exposure. Podcasts give you repeated exposure to the language. Repetition is a crucial for language acquisition. When you listen to podcasts regularly, you reinforce your understanding of grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Number five is real life context. Real life context is vital for language learning. Podcasts often present everyday scenarios, which means you get to learn how to communicate effectively in various situations, from ordering coffee to giving presentations. Now, let's dive into the nitty gritty of how to maximize your English learning through podcasts. Are you ready? Are you ready? Step 1. Choose English podcasts wisely. Not all podcasts are created equal when it comes to language learning. Look for shows that are designed for English learners like Love English, this one, or English as a Second Language podcast. These podcasts provide explanations and exercises to enhance your learning experience. Now let's talk about step 2. Mix it up. Don't stick to just one podcast. Explore different genres, accents, and English speaking countries. This way, you'll become a more versatile English speaker and be better prepared to communicate with people from all around the world. Now let's quickly move to the step 3, which is be consistent. Regularity is key in language learning. Try to listen to podcasts every day, even if it's just for a short time. The more you listen, the faster you'll improve. Step 4. Practice active listening. It's not just about passively absorbing the content. Actively engage with the material. Take notes. Pause the podcast to repeat phrases and try to anticipate what the hosts or guests will say next. Step 5. Expand your vocabulary. When you hear new words or phrases, make a note of them and look up their meanings. Consider creating flashcards or a word journal to help reinforce your vocabulary. Step number 6. Shadowing. This technique involves mimicking the speaker's pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. It's an excellent way to improve your speaking skills. Play a short segment of a podcast. Pause it and try to repeat what you've heard as accurately as possible. Step 7. Join an online community. There are plenty of forums and social media groups where English learners come together to discuss their favorite podcasts, share tips, and practice with others. These communities can provide motivation and support. Step 8. Set goals. Define your language learning goals and tailor your podcast selection accordingly. If you want to improve your business English, look for podcasts related to your industry. If you're preparing for an English proficiency exam, find podcasts with relevant content. Step 9. Evaluate your progress. Regularly assess your language skills and identify areas that need improvement. Adjust your podcast choices and learning techniques accordingly. Then I have step number 10. Of course, you should have fun. Learning English through podcasts should be an enjoyable experience. Choose podcasts that genuinely interest you, and you'll find the process of language acquisition much more engaging. Now, let's hear from. Here I've got like some stories in learning English through podcast. So I remember my student telling me that he started to listening to the few podcasts we used to go, and then he has improved significantly. Why? Because there were a lot of real life scenarios, and other my student told me that podcasts have transformed their commute. Now she looks forward to listening to new episodes. So it's like having a private tutor with you all the time. And then one of my students told me that he struggled when he was learning English, and then he followed shadowing practice with podcast. So this is how he improved the English language, now I would say here. So now here what you can do is you can listen to this podcast, or you can listen to other podcasts that has impacted your language learning journey. And now let's talk about some of the best English learning podcasts out there. These shows are not only informative but also entertaining, making them perfect for your language learning adventure. Number one is Love English. Of course, this podcast is specially designed to help you improve your English skills with a focus on real life conversations and practical language use. And then number two is the English We Speak by the BBC. Short episodes that teach you common English expressions used in everyday life. Then on number three, we have The Fluent Show. This podcast explores various language learning methods and is a great resource for those looking to expand their language skills. Number four is The English Coach. If you're seeking guidance on mastering pronunciation, intonation, and accent, this is the perfect podcast for you. Number five, I'd like to put Tulip's ESL podcast, a fun and informative podcast that covers every topics, idiomatic expressions, and natural English conversations. Number six is English Across the Pond. This show pairs American and British English speakers, offering you a chance to learn from both accents and cultures. On number seven, I'm gonna put ESL podcast, ideal for learners at different levels. This podcast offers audio lessons accompanied by transcripts and explanations. On number 8, I'm going to pick Luke's English podcast, a witty and engaging show that covers a wide range of topics, making perfect for expanding your vocabulary and cultural knowledge. On number 9, I've got Voice of America, which is VOA, Learning English, a fantastic resource for learners looking to enhance their listening skills and expand their general knowledge in English. Number 10, All Ears English, with a focus on communication and cultural nuances. This podcast will help you speak English naturally and confidently. Now it's time for my expert advice here. So I would say whenever you're listening to the podcast, you can learn a lot. No matter what the topic is, you should just enjoy. Now here, while listening to podcasts, you don't have to understand 100% here. There are a few tips that you have to keep in mind when you are listening to podcast. What you can do is, it's important to set clear goals. Why you are learning English. Determine why you want to learn English and what you want to achieve with your language skills. Now, if you have a clear objective, this will help you select the most appropriate podcasts for your needs. Now, since there are tons and tons of podcasts there, this might confuse you when you really want to learn through podcast. The second is transcriptions available. Many podcasts offer transcripts or show notes, which can be treasure trove of learning material. You can read along while listening, which helps reinforce your comprehension and vocabulary. And if you really want to focus on vocabulary, what you can do is you can create vocabulary journal, maybe flashcards. Whenever you encounter new words or phrase, jot them down along with their meanings and sample sentences. Now, regularly, if you review those and practice using these words in your own sentences or conversations, if you do it, you'll be more confident. Now, you can also use podcasts to improve pronunciation. This is what I generally did. You can record yourself. Now, you listen to it and then record yourself trying to mimic the pronunciation and rhythm. It's like copying the style and intonation. This self-assessment will help you identify areas for improvement and track your progress. So you can use podcasts for different things: pronunciation, vocabulary, and everything else in between. And there you have it, folks. With these tips, you're well on your way to mastering English through podcasts. Remember, it's not just about learning, it's about enjoying the journey. So just enjoy it. It should not be like a burden on you that you just want to learn English. Now it's time for my word of the day. And today's word is serendipity. It means finding something wonderful without looking for it. In your language learning journey, embrace the serendipity of discovering new words and expressions through podcasts. Before I wrap up, I'd like to leave you with a quote by Nelson Mandela. If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. Thank you so much for tuning in to Love English. Don't forget to subscribe. You can rate it, you can review it, and let me know if you listen to any podcast or not. Keep loving English. Until next time, this is Manoj signing off.